Namaste. We all know what violence is. We may face it in different areas of our life. Even if we are not the direct victims of violence, we see it daily on the social and print media. Some of us have got desensitized to violence so as not to upset our lives. Some of us may be suffering from past or present trauma. And still some of us may have decided to stand up and do something about it. Violence is any physical, emotional, verbal, institutional, structural, or spiritual behavior, attitude, policy, or condition that diminishes, dominates, or destroys ourselves and others. Violence crosses boundaries without permission. It disrupts authentic relations and separates us from other living beings. Violence comes out of fear or desperation when people do not see any other options for meeting their needs. Under such circumstances, the likelihood increases that people will act in ways that compromise the emotional, physical, social, or spiritual safety of others. Violence involves losing one's awareness of other people's humanity, and thus it leads people to act in ways they would not otherwise choose. For Johann Galtung, the father of peace theory, there are three types of violence: direct violence, structural violence, and cultural violence. Direct violence refers to physical acts of violence. Structural violence is the violence built into the social, political, and economic systems. Cultural violence includes those aspects of culture that legitimize violence and makes violence seem like an acceptable means of responding to conflict. What then is non-violence? Non-violence has been preached and practiced in every country and by people at every stage of history. Founders of the great world religions and many individual thinkers have taught that evil and violence cannot be overcome by evil and violence. For Gandhi, an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. A study of the tradition of non-violence shows there have been three main streams. One is the religious stream, the other is the metaphysical stream, and the third is the ethical stream. The religious stream belongs to the non-violence of Hindu and Christian scriptures. The metaphysical stream belongs to the non-violence of Jainism, and the ethical stream belongs to the non-violence of individual thinkers like Henry David Thoreau, Benjamin Tucker, and John Ruskin. In Jainism, non-violence or ahimsa is not limited to not hitting or not harming others. Ahimsa is the essence of a civilized life. Not only human life is precious, animals, birds, even plants and other kinds of vegetation need man's protection. Ahimsa thus not only means non-injury and non-harm. It is, as Albert Schweitzer called, reverence for all life. What are the rules and aims of a culture of non-violence? Among some of them are that non-violence and not violence is the fundamental law or basis of life. That the search of non-violence involves a constant and progressive expansion of the idea that all life is equal, all men are equal, and the whole of mankind is one human family. That non-violence allows respect for all religions, removal of untouchability, and freedom of social intercourse. That in order to ensure the happiness and well-being of each and every individual of the human family, it is essential to completely eradicate violence from human affairs. That true civilization or culture must enable every member of the human family to live a life of healthy fearlessness, self-respect, and sweet relations. And that non-violence aims at realizing one's unity with the whole universe. The leading contemporary theorists of nonviolence action is Gene Sharp, whose book, The Politics of Nonviolence Action, is a classic in the field. As the theoretical foundation for nonviolent action, Gene Sharp endorses the consent theory of power. In his model, power is not just a monolithic entity held by the oppressors, but rather a relation between individuals and groups in which subjects, through consent, give power to their rulers. Nonviolent action is withdrawal of this consent. Strategies for nonviolent action have been classified by Gene Sharp and other people. They range from the conservative to the revolutionary in the following order: non-resistance, active reconciliation, moral resistance, selective nonviolence, passive resistance, peaceful resistance, non-violent direct action, Gandhian satyagraha, and non-violent revolution. Through these forms of generic nonviolence, Gene Sharp emphasizes all varieties of nonviolence. Today, nonviolence is much associated with Gandhi. According to Gandhi, nonviolence is the greatest force at the disposal of humankind. It is mightier than the mightiest weapon. In a religiously and culturally diverse India, nonviolence was a unifying principle that transcended religious and ethnic divisions. It allowed Hindus, Muslims, Christians, Sikhs, and others to stand up against colonialism. Gandhi also believed nonviolence was necessary for building a just society, not just for achieving independence, but even after independence. Nonviolence fostered self-control, discipline, and self-respect among Indians, which Gandhi saw as necessary for true freedom. Mahatma Gandhi employed different nonviolent strategies in India for independence. Chronological order, they were satyagraha, brute force, passive resistance, civil disobedience, non-cooperation, and Swaraj or freedom. At every point in the independence struggle, whenever the British betrayed the trust of the Indian leadership, Gandhi used a new strategy. The culmination of all these non-violent methods brought pressure on the British Crown and won India her freedom. To conclude, we discover that the principle of non-violence resistance has been conceived and proposed independently by numerous sages and courageous people in many struggles in different countries. But Gandhi is the outstanding person in modern times who has worked out the theory and applied it to mass movements in an organized manner. Gandhi led Indian independence, inspired freedom movements in different parts of the world. For example, the civil rights movement in America, anti-Vietnam peace activism, the toppling of military dictatorships in Latin America, the anti-apartheid regime in South Africa, and rights advocates for ecology, animals, reproduction, and sexual diversity. Jai Bapu.